She had never thought she'd dial that number again. Calloused fingers trembling, Brielle's thumb hovered over the contact saved under just a single emoji, a black spade. No name, no photo, just a symbol, the one he used, the one everyone feared. She sat curled on the cold tile floor of her tiny bathroom, knees drawn to her chest, tears mixing with the blood running from the corner of her mouth. Her makeup was smudged, her blouse was torn. The yelling had finally stopped an hour ago, when Brandon slammed the door and left. Again. But this time, she knew it wasn't just a fight. This time, it had gone too far. Her ribs ached from where he kicked her. The sting on her cheek still burned from the slap. Her wrists were red from when he'd grabbed her, so hard she thought her bones might snap. And still, she almost didn't call, because calling him meant bringing a piece of her past back into her life, a dark piece. A man who owned half the city, half the police force, and the entire underworld beneath it, her ex-boss. And, maybe, the only man who ever truly saw her. Brielle had worked for him 2 years ago. A simple secretary in the heart of darkness. A front desk girl in a building that looked like a law firm but held secrets too big to whisper out loud. She took calls, scheduled meetings, brought him coffee. And somehow, during that time, he made her feel seen, even in silence, even through the danger. He never touched her, never crossed a line. But those eyes, always watching, always knowing, made her knees weak, until she walked away. Until she fell for Brandon, a normal man, a banker, sweet, charming, until he wasn't. And now, bloodied and broken in her own apartment, Brielle finally stopped hesitating. Her thumb hit the call button. The phone rang once, then twice. No voicemail, no hello, just a deep, steady voice on the other end. Brielle? Her breath caught. She hadn't expected him to answer. "It's me," she whispered, voice trembling. I need. What happened?" His voice was suddenly sharper, tension wrapped around every word. "I don't want to bother you, she choked. "Can you please come get me?" A pause, then the voice, colder now. "Text me your address. I moved. A few months ago. I'll trace the call." His tone left no room for argument. "Don't hang up." She clutched the phone tighter. Just hearing him, it felt like safety. Like someone had flipped the power back on in her dark, shattered world. "I didn't know who else to call," she said quietly, shame coloring every word. "You called the right person," he replied, voice low and dangerous. "I'm on my way." The call ended. She stared at the phone, heartbeat thundering in her ears. She had no idea what this would cost her. No idea if he would bring more chaos or justice. But deep inside her bruised chest, something fluttered. Maybe hope. Maybe regret. Maybe both. 15 minutes later, the silence of her apartment was shattered by a knock at the door. One heavy knock, followed by his voice. "Brielle, open the door." She pulled herself up slowly, each movement a wince. Her body screamed, but her heart had never raced faster. She unlocked it with shaking hands. And there he stood, 6'4" of cold fury wrapped in a tailored black coat. Dark eyes scanned her face, every bruise, every cut. His jaw tightened. He didn't say a word, didn't ask for permission. He stepped inside, closed the door, and pulled her gently into his chest. And in that moment, for the first time in a long time, she felt safe. But she also knew one thing. Someone was going to pay for what happened to her. And it wouldn't be her. He held her like she was made of glass. Not the kind of gentle that came from pity, no. His arms wrapped around her with purpose, protection, possession. As if the moment she called, she stopped being anyone else's problem and became his to fix. Brielle's face rested against his chest, and though her eyes were swollen, she noticed how fast his heart was beating. Not calm, not controlled. He was furious, but holding it in for her. She didn't know whether to feel comforted or terrified. "Sit down," he said softly, guiding her to the worn-out couch. She nodded, moving stiffly, her body aching in places she hadn't even noticed before. He took off his coat and draped it over her shoulders, crouching in front of her with careful eyes. "Kiss?" he asked. She blinked. What?" He smirked faintly. "That's what I used to ask you back then. When you looked like this after one of those long days running my life, remember?" Brielle gave a broken smile. "You used to say that to make me laugh. It worked." Her smile vanished as she winced, brushing her fingers gently across the bruises on her jaw. He reached out and touched her chin lightly, tilting her face up to inspect the damage. "Was it him?" he asked. She didn't answer. She didn't have to. His entire body tensed like a live wire. Those eyes, the ones that made grown men fold in seconds, went dark. "Tell me everything," he said. Brielle hesitated. "He didn't used to be like this," she whispered. "At first, he was sweet, thoughtful. Always asking how my day was, bringing me lunch. And I thought I was being smart, safe, choosing someone normal, not someone like you." His gaze didn't flicker, but then he started drinking, getting controlling. He didn't like me working late. He didn't like me talking to other men. He said I owed him everything. And today, She trailed off, swallowing the memory like poison. He leaned in, voice so low she almost didn't hear it. Did he touch you like that before today? Yes, she whispered. But never this bad. Why didn't you tell me? Brielle looked at him, and for a moment her eyes filled with shame. Because you're the mafia boss who buries problems in the river, she said bitterly. And he was my boyfriend. I thought I could fix him, not have him disappear. He didn't argue, didn't deny it, just stood slowly and pulled out his phone. She panicked. What are you doing? Sending a location. To who? To the people who bury problems in the river. Her heart leapt. Wait, no, please. I didn't call you to kill anyone. I needed someone. Just for tonight. He looked down at her, calm, cold. But behind that calm was rage she'd only seen once, the day someone tried to rob the office with her in it. That man's body had been found 2 towns over. Brandon isn't a problem that goes away with space, he said. He's a ticking bomb. Next time he hits you, he won't stop. You know that. Brielle closed her eyes. She did. Still, the idea of blood on her hands made her stomach turn. I just want to feel safe, she whispered. I'm so tired of pretending I'm okay. He walked back over and sat beside her, slow and steady. Then he reached into his coat and pulled something out, a small flip phone. Use this from now on. Never call me from your regular line again. She frowned. Why? Because you just stepped back into a world that doesn't forgive weakness. His voice softened again. But you won't be alone in it. Her lip trembled. I shouldn't have left the way I did. I never held it against you, he said. You should have. I couldn't. You wanted a normal life, and I'm not normal. Silence hung between them, thick with unsaid things. Then he reached over, brushing a lock of hair behind her ear. I waited, he added quietly. Brielle looked at him. For what? For you to realize normal is overrated. Her chest tightened. She didn't know what this was between them anymore. But she knew one thing. She never wanted Brandon's arms around her again. And somehow, this man, the one she used to fear, the one she used to secretly dream about, felt safer than anyone ever had. The night wrapped around them like a heavy blanket, and Brielle didn't realize how exhausted she was until her eyes started to flutter shut against his shoulder. The adrenaline was wearing off, and in its place came bone-deep fatigue, the kind that didn't just live in her body but in her soul. He let her lean on him, didn't move, didn't speak, just stayed. The silence wasn't uncomfortable. It was the kind of silence she remembered from those late nights at the office when everyone else had left and it was just the two of them, her typing reports, him reading through files, both pretending not to notice the electricity in the air. Back then, they never crossed the line. She always thought he was the dangerous one, the one who'd wreck her life if she got too close. But now, sitting there with bruises and broken trust, she realized how wrong she'd been. I'll take the guest room, he said eventually, his voice calm again. You need rest. You're not going to leave? She asked, trying not to sound too desperate. I'm not leaving you alone in this place. Thank you. He stood slowly, walking toward the hallway. But just before he disappeared from view, he paused. If you have nightmares, he said without looking back, call my name. Brielle didn't respond. She just watched him go, her heart beating faster than it should have. She woke to the sound of someone tapping on the door. Not knocking. Tapping. Hesitant. Cowardly. For a split second, panic rushed into her throat. But then her eyes landed on the coat still draped over the couch. His scent lingered. Cigarettes and expensive cologne. She stood, slower this time, and peeked through the peephole. Brandon. Of course. He looked drunk again. Hair messy. Shirt half unbuttoned like he didn't bother trying to appear decent. Brielle, he hissed, voice slurred. I know you're in there. She didn't move. Open the door. Let me explain. Baby, come on, I just lost it for a second. I didn't mean to. The door opened. But it wasn't Brielle who opened it. It was him. Brandon stumbled back, eyes going wide the second he recognized the man standing in front of him. What the hell? Brandon muttered, blinking fast. Who the fuck are you? The man didn't speak, didn't even blink. He just reached forward, grabbed Brandon by the collar, and slammed him against the hallway wall with bone-shattering force. Brandon yelped. Hey, what the hell, man? You like hitting women? The mafia boss said, his voice low. Try hitting someone who hits back. Brandon squirmed. She's mine. She's my girlfriend. Not anymore. He let go. Brandon crumpled to the floor, wheezing. His face was pale now. The fight was gone from his eyes. He looked up at the man who stood over him, and for the first time, he looked scared. I should break your jaw for what you did, the man growled. But I won't, because she doesn't want me to. Brandon spat blood. You think you're better than me? You think she wants a freak like you? No, the boss said coldly. I know she doesn't want trash like you. He leaned down, voice razor sharp. You come near her again, I won't talk. I won't knock. I'll bury you somewhere they'll never find. Brandon's eyes widened. He knew the threat wasn't just for show. He knew exactly who this man was now. Brielle stepped into the doorway, her voice quiet but clear. Go, Brandon. Brandon looked at her one last time, but she didn't flinch, didn't cry, didn't even blink. She was done. He stumbled down the hall and disappeared into the night. When the door closed, she turned around and stared at the man who just stood there, hands clenched at his sides, jaw still tight. "Did I go too far?" he asked, as if he even knew what too far meant. She didn't answer. Instead, she walked up to him, slowly, looked into his eyes, and then, without a word, she reached up and kissed him. Not gently, not sweetly, but like a woman who had finally stopped lying to herself. His hands gripped her waist, hesitated, then pulled her closer like he'd been waiting years for this. When they finally broke apart, he whispered, "Brielle," and she said the only truth she had left. "I should have called you the first time he hurt me." He didn't say anything at first. His forehead rested gently against hers, their breaths mingling in the quiet apartment. The weight of what had just happened still lingered in the air. Her bruises, Brandon's cowardly retreat, the kiss that shouldn't have happened but felt like it had been written long before tonight. Brielle pulled back slightly, her eyes searching his. "Do you think I'm weak?" she asked. "No," he said without hesitation. "You should. I think you're strong," he replied, voice calm but firm. "Too strong. That's the problem. You thought you had to survive everything on your own." She looked down at her feet, the silence pulling tight again. "He used to say no one would believe me, that I'd sound crazy, that I'd come crawling back, just like all the other times." He reached out, lifting her chin so she had to look at him. "You're not crawling," he said. "You walked away. That takes guts. The rest, I'll take care of." His words didn't sound like a promise. They sounded like a threat, and for once, it was comforting. She swallowed hard. "Why are you doing this? You called me." "That doesn't answer the question." He didn't blink. "I've wanted you since the day you walked into my office wearing that ugly gray skirt and nervous eyes." Her lips parted, startled by his honesty. "But you were too bright back then," he added. "Too pure for what I do. I thought letting you go would keep you safe." Brielle gave a soft, bitter laugh. "Well, that didn't work out too well." "No," he said, stepping closer. "It didn't." There was something dangerous in the way he looked at her now, not the kind of danger she feared anymore, but the kind that made her skin burn, made her want to forget everything except the heat between them. "I don't know what this is," she whispered, "or if it's a mistake." "Probably is," he murmured, brushing his thumb along the edge of her jaw. "But so was pretending I didn't want you." Brielle leaned into the touch, closing her eyes for just a moment. She felt something in her chest unravel, a tight, ugly knot of shame, confusion, and hurt. And in its place, something else crept in, hunger. Not just for his touch, but for the way he saw her, the way he didn't flinch at her brokenness. She opened her eyes again. "I'm not the girl you remember," she said softly. "I'm tired, angry, a little messed up." He smiled, not with his mouth, but with his eyes. "Good," he said. "So am I." Later that night, Brielle stood in the kitchen, sipping water and staring out the window. The city was quiet. Lights twinkled in the distance, but none of them felt real. She felt like she was floating between two lives, the one she just escaped from and the one she hadn't yet accepted. He came up behind her without a sound, resting his hand lightly on her hip. She didn't startle. "I called my guy," he said. "Brandon's name is on a list now. If he tries anything, he won't get far." She nodded slowly. "And if I said I don't want him hurt, I'll make sure he isn't," he replied. "Unless he gives me a reason." There was a long pause. Then she asked, "Is this the part where you tell me I belong to you now?" He chuckled, low and rough. "No," he said. "This is the part where I ask if you want to." She turned to face him. "Do I even have a choice?" "Always." Brielle stared up at him. For a moment, she saw not the boss, not the feared man in the shadows, but the man who used to bring her black coffee without asking, who stayed late to walk her to her car, who looked at her like she was more than a girl behind a desk. "I don't want to be saved," she said quietly. "I just want someone who won't hurt me." He stepped closer, voice soft but firm. "Then stop running from the one man who never did." The tension cracked wide open between them. She rose on her toes, kissed him again, slower this time, more certain. And this time he didn't hesitate either. His hands gripped her waist, grounding her, possessing her. Not like Brandon ever did. No fists, no lies, just fire. And when she finally pulled away, breathless and dizzy, she whispered, "I want to belong to you." And he answered, "You always did." The next morning came with gray skies and a quiet Brielle. She stood at the window wrapped in his coat, watching the city come to life below her. Coffee brewed somewhere behind her, but she didn't move. Not yet. Her face was still swollen. Her ribs still ached, but her mind was sharper than ever. Last night had changed something, not just between her and him, but in her. A switch had flipped. For years, she'd tried to hold herself together for the sake of appearances, always smiling, always brushing things off, convincing herself that love meant forgiving someone over and over again, even when it bled her dry. But after Brandon's last outburst, and the man who answered her call, Brielle knew something else now. Love didn't bruise you. Love didn't break your spirit. And love sure as hell didn't make you feel small. She turned when she heard his footsteps. He looked different in daylight, less like a monster from whispered stories, and more like a man who'd seen too much, done too much, and yet still managed to show up for her. He placed the coffee on the table and looked at her without a word. You're quiet, she said. So are you, I'm thinking. Dangerous habit, he muttered with a smirk. She walked over and sat down. The couch still smelled like last night, cologne, adrenaline, and temptation. She wrapped both hands around the warm mug and took a sip, then looked up at him. You know people are going to talk, right? She asked. About me, and you. Let them. I mean really talk. They'll say I went from one bad man to a worse one. He sat down beside her, eyes steady. Do you think I'm worse? She thought about it. Thought about the bodies he'd buried, the blood on his hands. But then she also thought about how he never once raised his voice at her. Never once grabbed her when she said no. Never once made her feel less. No, she said finally. Not to me. A small silence followed. Then she asked the question that had been clawing at her since she kissed him. What now? He leaned back, arms stretched across the top of the couch. Now I clean up the mess, he said. Make sure Brandon disappears from your life. Make sure you're safe. That's not what I meant. He looked over. I know, Brielle swallowed. Do I go back to being your secretary? No, he said flatly. You don't go back to taking orders from me. Then, what am I? He reached out and gently touched the edge of her bruised cheek. His thumb lingered there, not moving, like he wanted to erase what Brandon had done with just a touch. You're mine, he said. The way he said it wasn't possessive. It was protective, fierce. Like she was something valuable he had every intention of keeping safe. But Brielle wasn't a girl looking to be claimed anymore. And you? She asked, voice soft. What are you to me? He paused. It wasn't often anyone caught him off guard, but the way she asked, honest and calm, made something in him crack. I don't know, he admitted. I haven't belonged to anyone in a long time. She didn't respond, just leaned in and rested her head against his chest. For a while they sat there in the quiet. His hand found hers and laced their fingers together. There was no heat now, no wildfire, just warmth, a calm after the storm. But it wouldn't last. Nothing ever did in his world. His phone buzzed, and when he checked it, his expression darkened. What is it? She asked, sitting up. Brandon. She froze. He's talking, he said. Went straight to someone he shouldn't have. He's trying to make this ugly. He's threatening to expose connections, names. Brielle felt the panic rise again. I told you not to hurt him. And I gave you that for one night, he said quietly. But he made his choice. He crossed into my world now. And you know how that ends. She stood, heart pounding. You promised. I promised to keep you safe, he cut in, standing too. And I will. Even if it means doing things you won't forgive me for. She stared at him. This was it. The line they hadn't crossed yet. The line between wanting him and being with him. Because loving a man like him meant accepting that there would be no clean hands, no innocent endings. And the truth was, a part of her didn't want clean anymore. A part of her wanted vengeance. Wanted Brandon to feel fear for once. And maybe, just maybe, that part of her belonged to this man more than she ever realized. Brielle didn't sleep that night. She lay on the couch staring at the ceiling, listening to the city hum outside, every sound sharper than it should have been. Her body still ached, but it wasn't the bruises keeping her awake. It was the war happening inside her. Half of her wanted to hold on to what was left of her conscience. The girl who still believed in right and wrong. The girl who once turned in her 2 weeks' notice to escape a world filled with men like him. The girl who chose the normal guy with the kind smile. And the other half, the half that answered the phone and begged him to come, didn't care about right or wrong anymore. That version of her wanted Brandon gone. Not jailed, not warned, gone. Because he had made her feel worthless, powerless. And no amount of therapy or time was going to fix what he'd broken. She heard the door creak slightly and looked up to find him standing there in sweatpants and a black shirt, eyes heavy but sharp as ever. You're not sleeping, he said quietly. She sat up. Neither are you. I can't, he admitted. Not until this is handled. She hesitated, then asked, what does handled mean? He didn't answer right away. Instead, he walked over and sat beside her, elbows resting on his knees. I gave the order, he said, looking straight ahead. Brandon won't make it through the weekend. Brielle exhaled sharply. There it was. No sugarcoating. No pretending. Do you want to stop me? He asked, voice calm. She looked at him, really looked, and realized she didn't see a monster. She saw a man who knew exactly what it meant to protect someone. A man who wouldn't hesitate to destroy the thing that hurt her. Not out of ego, not out of pride, but because he couldn't bear to see her scared again. And somehow, she didn't hate him for it. I don't want to be the reason someone dies, she said softly. You're not. He is. She swallowed the lump in her throat. And what if people find out? What if it blows back on me? I'll handle it. It won't touch you. Her hand drifted up to his shoulder, resting there for a moment. You always say that, because it's always true. They sat in silence, the space between them pulsing with things neither of them knew how to say. Then finally she leaned her head on his shoulder. If you do this, I won't ask questions. I won't cry about it later, she whispered. But don't lie to me, not ever. I won't, he said. But I'll warn you now, the truth is ugly. She gave a bitter smile. So is love. His arm moved around her waist slowly, pulling her closer. It wasn't romantic. It wasn't sexy. It was real. A quiet promise in the middle of the storm. He's hiding in some hotel on the east side, he said, under someone else's name. Thought he could trade dirt on me for protection. You're going to kill him tonight? Not me. I don't touch trash, but someone I trust will take care of it. She nodded, then asked the question that made her throat dry. Can I see him first? His head turned slowly. Why? I need to look him in the eye, she whispered, and let him know he didn't break me. He didn't like the idea. She could tell from the shift in his posture, the flicker in his eye. But he didn't say no. You get 10 minutes, he said finally. I'll be right outside. An hour later, Brielle stood in a cheap hotel hallway with peeling wallpaper and the hum of a vending machine down the corridor. Her heart pounded like a drum in her chest. He stood behind her, silent, dressed in black again, arms crossed, watching her carefully. You don't have to do this, he said. I do. She knocked. Inside, she heard movement, then the door cracked open. Brandon looked like a ghost. Bags under his eyes, hair greasy, lips dry. He froze when he saw her. Brielle? She stepped inside before he could speak again. He shut the door slowly, confused, nervous. You shouldn't be here, he said. You don't know what's going on, these people. They're crazy. I only told them stuff because I had to protect us. There's no us, she said flatly. You don't mean that, he said, stepping forward. I messed up, okay? I was drunk. You know I didn't mean to. You meant to hurt me. She cut in, eyes sharp. Every time. You wanted control. You liked the fear. His mouth opened, then closed. He had no defense. She took another step forward, her voice low. I loved you. I tried to fix you. But the truth is, I was never broken. You were. He blinked, dumbfounded. Why are you really here? She looked him dead in the eyes. To say goodbye. And then she walked out without another word. He followed her to the door. Brielle, wait please. But when he stepped out, he found himself staring down the barrel of a gun. And the man holding it didn't blink. Brielle didn't look back. She just kept walking, her spine straight, her heart finally still. The shot didn't echo. It was muffled, professional, clean, quiet, like it had been practiced 100 times before. And it had. Brielle didn't flinch when it happened. She didn't need to look back. She already knew. The hotel hallway behind her would soon be wiped of every trace. No witnesses, no noise. Just one more secret buried in a city that never asked too many questions. By the time she reached the car, he was already there, holding the door open like nothing had happened. Is it done? She asked, her voice steady. He nodded once. You okay? She hesitated, then nodded back. He didn't press her. Just slid into the driver's seat and pulled off quietly, the city lights casting shadows across his face. They didn't speak for several minutes, not because they didn't want to, but because there wasn't anything left to say about Brandon. He was over. That chapter of her life was closed. Violently, yes. Finally. Definitely. But closed. The weight of it hadn't hit her yet. Or maybe it never would. Maybe she'd already mourned him during all those nights. She cried herself to sleep while he whispered apologies that meant nothing. Maybe this was what freedom really felt like. Not peace, not joy, just space to breathe again. I should feel something, she said finally. You will. Eventually, he replied. And when you do, I'll still be here. She turned her head toward him. Why me? His jaw clenched slightly, but he kept his eyes on the road. Because when I'm with you, I feel like a man, not a monster. She didn't know what to say to that. No one had ever called him a monster out loud, but it lingered in the way people looked at him, moved around him, like his name was a curse, like his shadow meant death. But to her, he was the only person who showed up when she was at her worst, and stayed. When they got to her apartment, he parked but didn't move to get out. You don't have to keep watching over me, she said, breaking the silence. It's over. Brandon was the symptom, not the disease, he said quietly. You've still got scars. Some of them, people like him didn't cause. She looked at him. What are you saying? I'm saying if you want to build something real, a life where no one lays a hand on you, no one talks down to you, no one makes you feel small, it won't be easy, and it won't be clean. Her chest tightened. And you think you can give me that? I think I'm the only one who's not afraid of your damage, he said, because I've got my own. She didn't realize she was crying until she felt the tears sliding down her cheeks. Not sobs, not grief, relief, because for the first time in years, someone wasn't asking her to be okay. He reached out, wiped the tears with his thumb. You still want to belong to me? He asked softly. She nodded. Then it goes both ways, he said. I belong to you too. And just like that, something changed. Not a fairy tale, not a fantasy, but something real. That night, Brielle slept in his arms. No nightmares, no flashbacks, just his hand resting on her waist, his breath steady behind her. The kind of silence that didn't scream. The kind of silence that healed. The morning sun filtered through the blinds, soft and golden, cutting quiet lines across the sheets where Brielle lay curled against his chest. She hadn't slept this peacefully in years. No jerking awake at the sound of footsteps, no bracing for shouting. No curling into herself out of fear of a warm body turning cold in a second. Just stillness, steady breathing, safety. When she stirred, his arm tightened instinctively around her. Not possessive, just present. She tilted her head back slightly, finding his eyes already open. "Morning," she whispered. He nodded. "How do you feel?" "Like I survived something I didn't realize was killing me." He studied her face for a long moment, then tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. "You did more than survive." She smiled faintly and leaned into the touch, her fingers tracing the inside of his wrist. "You don't scare me anymore. I never wanted to," he murmured. "No, but you did." Her eyes flicked up to meet his. "Because I think even back then, I knew what you were capable of. I just didn't understand how much of that power you were willing to give to me." He didn't speak, but his expression changed. Something deeper passed through his eyes, something raw. She knew this man didn't give himself away easily. Not to his crew, not to his enemies, never to women. But with her, he didn't need walls. She touched the scar near his collarbone, the one she'd always noticed in passing back when she worked for him, but never dared to ask about. "Tell me something real," she said. "Something no one else knows." He paused, looked at her for a long time. "Then, I killed my father." The words didn't come with emotion, no shake, no weight, but her breath still caught. "I was 16, he said calmly. "He used to beat my mother. I watched it for years. Stayed quiet. Hide. One night, I didn't." Brielle said nothing, just listened. Not with fear. With understanding. He was drunk. "I hit him with a tire iron. Once in the head. Hard. Hard. He didn't get up." She reached for his hand and held it. Tight. "I buried him behind the garage," he added, "and no one came looking." "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I'm not." She didn't judge him. Not for a second. Because she'd seen where Mercy got people like them. Mercy had almost killed her. "I'm not afraid of what you've done," she said. "Only what you'll do for me." He looked at her then, really looked. Like a man who'd spent his entire life walking through fire and for the first time found water. "I'd burn cities for you, Brielle," he said. "You just have to say the word." Her eyes softened. "Then let's not burn anything yet. Let's build something instead." He smiled, barely, but it was there. In the weeks that followed, Brandon's name vanished from everything. His job, his apartment, even his car, wiped clean. Police didn't ask questions. No one cared enough to file a report. And Brielle? She started over. She moved to a quiet place uptown, one of his buildings. Expensive, secure, with tinted windows and guards who knew her by name. She didn't go back to office jobs or pretending she liked small talk with strangers. She started consulting for his business. Legal fronts, charity shells, event coordination, the kind of work that kept her close but still her own. Their relationship wasn't public. People whispered, of course, but no one dared speak it aloud. No one dared ask why the kingpin of the city had suddenly stopped showing interest in anything or anyone except one woman, and when she walked into a room now, it wasn't with fear in her step. It was with quiet power, because everyone knew she belonged to him, and he belonged to her. It wasn't love in the storybook sense. It was better. It was survival turned intimacy, violence turned loyalty, and two broken people who found something terrifyingly whole in each other. One night, as they sat on the rooftop, the city stretching out beneath them, Brielle leaned into his side and whispered, "Do you ever regret the life you've built?" He didn't answer right away. Then he kissed the top of her head and said, "Not anymore." She looked up at him and smiled. "Good, because I don't think I ever want out." His hand gripped hers tightly, and for once neither of them felt like they were running anymore. They had stopped, together, right where they were meant to be.